Okay, let's unpack this. When you hear the name Herodotus, what immediately springs to mind?
Well, the father of history, right?
Yeah,
That's the usual tag.
exactly. But what if I told you that revered title has been fiercely debated for centuries and often for very good reason?
It's fascinating, isn't it? How his work, The Histories, is like the founding document of Western history.
Hmm.
But at the same time, he got called a mythmonger almost right away. It really makes you ask, what is history anyway? Is it just facts or something else?
That's exactly where we're headed today. We're taking a deep dive into Herodotus's histories. We want to explore how this, pioneering work really laid the groundwork for how we understand the past.
Right, and look at what drove him to write it, some of the absolutely captivating stories he collected.
Oh, yeah.
And why his reliability has been such a hot topic since antiquity, really, right up to modern archaeology.
So our mission for you today is to give you a bit of a shortcut, maybe, to understanding this huge, important work. Its unique style, its legacy.
Yeah, hopefully you'll get a deeper feel for the ancient world through his eyes and think about how, stories, facts, human motives, how they all weave together to create what we call history.
Okay, so the Histories. Written around, 430 BC? What's so striking is it's not just a history book.
No, it's considered the founding work in Western literature, and it gives us one of the earliest big pictures of the Persian Empire's rise and, of course, the Greco-Persian Wars.
That huge clash.
Indeed. And Herodotus frames it right away as this struggle between, slavery, how he saw the Persian system, and freedom, the Greek side.
That immediately sets up a really powerful narrative, doesn't it? It's not just reporting events.
Absolutely. It gives it this moral dimension right from the start.
And he was pretty clear about why he was writing, wasn't he? He says it right at the beginning.
He does. Basically, to prevent the traces of human events from being erased by time and to preserve the fame of great deeds, Greek and non-Greek alike.
And crucially, to figure out the cause of the hostilities between them. He claimed he traveled a lot for this, right? Doing interviews, collecting stories.
Yeah, he did. And if you step back, you see this huge ambition, not just what happened, but why.
Mm-hmm.
And bringing in all these different cultural perspectives, which was pretty revolutionary for the time. He broke it down into 9 books named after the Muses. Gives it that epic feel.
It really does take you on a journey. His books are just packed with these stories. They're informative, but also just incredibly captivating.
They really are. They often seem to be doing double duty, telling you about events, but also maybe teaching a lesson.
Like in book 1, right at the start, you get that conversation between King Croesus, super rich guy, and Solon, the Athenian wise man.
Yeah, and Solon basically tells him, you can't call anyone happy until they're dead. It's not about the money.
It sets a theme for the whole work, really, about fate and maybe not getting too arrogant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which brings up that question. How much is straight history and how much is, let's say, narrative shaping?
Like the oracle at Delphi telling Croesus, if you attack, a great empire will fall.
Classic ambiguous prophecy. And of course, it's his own empire that falls.
Right. But he weaves in things that seem very specific, too, like Thales predicting that solar eclipse back in 585 BC during a battle.
It's a seamless blend, and you see that mix of cleverness and detail elsewhere, too.
Yeah.
Like Cyrus the Great taking Babylon.
Oh, yeah, not by storming the walls.
No, by diverting the river, the Guindes, and just marching in on the dry riverbed. Super clever.
And Herodotus adds that detail about Cyrus punishing the river itself because one of his sacred horses drowned in it.
It's those memorable details, right? Makes it stick.
And it's not just war and politics. Book 2 is basically all about Egypt. It's like an ancient travel guide.
It really is. He's so curious. He tries to figure out why the Nile floods every year.
His theory is kind of wild, involving snow melting in the desert.
Yeah, he gets it wrong, but the point is he's trying to explain it. He's inquiring.
And he describes everything, Egyptian customs, religion, how different it was from the Greeks, the animals.
Crocodiles, that bird that supposedly cleans the croc's teeth.
The trochilus, yeah. And mythical stuff too, like the phoenix, winged
Right.
snakes.
He's trying to capture the whole picture, the weird and the wonderful.
He even talks about building the Great Pyramid, mentions machines. Makes you wonder what he meant.
Exactly. And then there's that story totally different from Homer about Helen and Paris chilling in Egypt before the Trojan War.
Where did he get that? It really makes you think about his sources and how he picked and chose.
But the real core of the book, you have to say, is that massive clash, Greece versus Persia.
Yeah, Book 7, Xerxes getting ready to invade, building the canal, the pontoon bridges. It's epic scale.
But Herodotus brings it down to the human level, too. Xerxes' dreams, the conflicting advice he gets, Mardonius saying, go for it. Artabanus saying, maybe not.
It shows how these huge historical moments can pivot on personal things, on the psychology almost.
Definitely. And he shows the sheer power of these kings. That story about Pythias.
Oh, that's brutal. Offers all his money, asks for one son to stay home.
And Xerxes has the son cut in half and makes the army march between the pieces. It's chilling. Speaks volumes about absolute power.
And then Thermopylae, just legendary.
It is. And Herodotus frames it not just as a battle, but about sacrifice, the betrayal by Rhachialtes.
Leonidas and the small force holding off that huge army.
And the grim end, Xerxes having Leonidas' head cut off and his body crucified.
Yeah.
It perfectly captures that ideological clash he set up earlier.
Then you get Salamis in Book 8, the sea battle.
Right. And Herodotus points out the Greeks had an edge because, well, they could swim. Fewer losses when ships went down. Smart observation.
And he even gives credit to Artemisia, the Persian woman commander, for her good advice to Xerxes.
Yeah, he notices competence, regardless of side or gender, which is pretty remarkable for his time.
But his curiosity went way beyond the battlefield.
Oh, absolutely. Book 4, he dives into the Scythians, north of the Black Sea, describes their culture, their famous dislike of foreigners.
His phobia, yeah. And those stories of the Androphagi, the man-eaters.
Whether true or not, he's recording what people said. He's doing early anthropology, comparing cultures.
You see it again in Book 3, how people collected gold in India or spices in Arabia.
It's this constant ethnographic interest. Comparing, contrasting. That's why people call him the father of comparative anthropology. He's genuinely trying to understand other ways of life.
And then there's that amazing bit in Book 4, the Phoenician sailors.
Ah, yes. Circumnavigating Africa. They claim they saw the sun on their right while sailing west.
And Herodotus says, basically, yeah, I don't buy it.
Right, because he didn't know about the southern hemisphere. But for us, that's exactly where the sun should have been.
It's incredible. A detail he doubts actually becomes evidence for the voyage happening. Accidental proof.
So his style,
Yeah.
it's just unique. People call it folksy, like conversational.
Yeah, but also international because it covers so much ground. It's this blend of being critical, but also just a great storyteller.
You can definitely see the influence of Homer and the Athenian playwrights. His stories often feel episodic, like scenes in a play, and there's often a moral point being made.
It's not just a dry list of facts. It feels like someone telling you amazing stories they just heard.
But he's clear about his goal. To set forth the reasons why they waged war on each other. He wants to know the causes.
A bit like Homer asking which god set them fighting in the Iliad. It's about causality.
Exactly. And his explanations aren't simple. He looks at all sorts of things, human emotions, revenge, gratitude. These are key drivers for him.
And he sees divine will and human action as kind of interconnected.
Yeah, it's like human choices explain what happens. The bad craftsman builds a weak house, it collapses. But maybe divine will explains why it collapsed on that person at that time. They work together in his view.
Okay, but the big question, the one that's always been there, can we actually trust him? How reliable is all this?
Ah, the million drachma question.
Yeah.
It was controversial even back then. Durrus of Samos called him a mythmonger. Cicero said his work was full of fables.
Yeah, some people preferred Thucydides, right? Saw him as more truthful, more analytical.
That's the traditional contrast.
Mm-hmm.
And modern critics, like Detlef Feeling, have argued pretty strongly that Herodotus maybe exaggerated his travels, maybe even made up some sources.
Pointing out that some of his Persian or Egyptian informants sound suspiciously Greek.
Exactly. And Feeling suggested Herodotus cared more about a good story, the exciting bits, the weird stuff, than sticking purely to the facts. Plus, there are accusations of bias, maybe pro-Athenian views, coloring his accounts of places like Thebes or Corinth.
So there's definitely a case for skepticism.
There is. But there's a really strong counter-argument, too.
Which is?
Well, for a huge chunk of history, for like 2 centuries in that part of the world, he's basically the only detailed source we have. Primary source.
Right. Take him away and there's a massive gap.
Precisely. And despite the criticisms, he's still hailed as the father of ethnography, comparative anthropology. Some even call him more modern than other ancient historians because he was so curious.
And then there's the archaeology.
Yes. This is where it gets really interesting. Time and again, archaeological digs have turned up evidence that seems to back up his descriptions.
Like Gelonus, that Scythian city people thought he'd exaggerated.
Vouch. Or discoveries in Heraklion, the sunken Egyptian city, or the Nocreta Stela. They match things he wrote. These aren't just minor points. They suggest a real foundation of observation.
You mentioned a recent example, too.
Oh yeah, fantastic one. 2019, archaeologists excavating in the Nile Delta found a specific type of Egyptian cargo ship called a barus,
Okay.
and it matched Herodotus' description in the histories almost perfectly. Down to the construction details he mentioned, it was a huge boost for his credibility as an observer, at least for his Egypt sections.
That's amazing. And speaking of things that sound unbelievable,
Yeah.
what about the gold-digging ants? That's my favorite.
Ah, yes. Book 3. These fox-sized furry ants in India that dig up gold dust sounds completely mythical.
It really does. Straight out of fantasy.
But again, stepping back,
Hmm.
that French ethnologist Michel Peissel, back in the 80s, he proposed an idea. He suggested Herodotus might have actually been describing Himalayan marmots. They're big, furry, burrowing animals found in gold-rich areas in Pakistan.
Marmots, not ants.
Exactly. And apparently the local people there, the Manero, confirmed they do collect gold dust brought up by these marmots.
Wow. So how did Herodotus get ants?
Peissel thought it might be a translation issue. Herodotus probably relied on translators, right? Maybe the Persian word for marmot sounded like their word for mountain ant.
So the core observation, furry animals digging up gold, might actually be true.
Seems plausible. Now, Herodotus does add that these ants were said to chase and eat camels.
Okay, maybe that part's a bit much.
Right. That definitely shows the mix of reported fact and, well, travelers' tales or exaggeration getting woven in. But the core animal might be real.
So ultimately, he's this master storyteller walking that line between history and, well, stories.
I think that's right. He was serious about his inquiries, his research. But he wasn't afraid to include myths or amazing tales if they seemed relevant or widely believed.
But he tried to check them.
He claims to. He says he tried to corroborate stories, test their probability. Even with the myths, he often signals them.
And he's open about believing the gods are involved in things.
Yeah, he states it clearly. Many things prove to me that the gods take part in the affairs of man. Not like Homer's gods showing up in person, but their influence is there. They're part of the why.
Like that story of Arion, the musician saved by a dolphin.
Perfect example. He introduces it by saying a very wonderful thing is said to have happened. He signals it's extraordinary.
But then he adds that people in Corinth and Lesbos agree on the story. He's citing his sources, even for something that sounds mythical.
Exactly. It's that blend again, which leads to that great metaphor from John Harrington. Herodotus is a centaur.
The human front part is the historian, the horse body is the wilder storyteller.
Something like that. The responsible inquirer meets the ancient mythmaker. And it forces us to ask, can a story hold truth, even if it's not literally factually accurate in every detail?
For Herodotus, it seems the answer was yes. Myth and history weren't totally separate. They both helped understand the world, especially how events were remembered and passed down.
Makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About truth and storytelling.
So wrapping this up, what does it all mean for you listening today? Our deep dive shows Herodotus' histories is just this incredibly rich, complex, foundational work.
Yeah, it mixes deep reporting, amazing cultural observations, gripping stories of war, and this really thoughtful inquiry into human nature, fate, history itself.
He wasn't just a list maker, the father of history label. Maybe it's too simple.
Perhaps. Barry Strauss called him one of the greatest storytellers who ever wrote, but also a philosopher dealing with huge themes: East versus West, liberty, the rise and fall of empires.
Exploring everything from the grand scale, fate, and the gods down to individual actions.
Exactly. That interplay is key.
And maybe that mix of fact, narrative, history, myth, it invites you to think about the stories you use to understand the world. News, documentaries, family stories. How do they shape what you see as true?
That's a great takeaway. And if you are intrigued and want more, there are some great historical novels based on Herodotus. Stephen Pressfield's Gates of Fire is amazing, focuses right on Thermopylae.
Wow.
Or Gore Vidal's Creation, which gives you a Persian perspective, weaving Herodotus in.
Great suggestions. A good way to keep digging into his world.
Okay, let's unpack this. When you hear world record, what pops into your head? Like the tallest person ever, fastest runner, maybe something wild like, I don't know, eating loads of hot dogs.
It's usually something extreme, right?
Exactly. And Guinness World Records is just, the name for that stuff. It's synonymous with human achievement, but also sometimes just plain weirdness from nature.
Absolutely.
So today, we're doing a deep dive into that whole world. Our mission. We want to dig into its, frankly, bizarre beginnings, how it ballooned into this global thing, tackle some of the ethical questions that pop up, which are pretty surprising, and figure out what being a record holder even means today.
Mm-hmm.
Especially now that, well, you can kind of buy your way in some cases.
Yeah, that's a big part of it now.
You might think you know the book, but honestly, there are some nuggets in here, from pub arguments to big corporate controversies that are really unexpected.
And what's really fascinating looking at the sources is mapping that journey. Starting with a simple argument in a pub and ending up as this huge, complex, global company that's actually tangled up in some serious debates. It's way more than just a list of facts. It's a real cultural force with surprising layers.
Totally agree. And that beginning, the accidental start, it's quite a tale. So
Yeah.
picture this. It's November 10th, 1951.
Okay.
Sir Hugh Beaver, he's the managing director of Guinness Breweries back then, is out on a shooting party, County Wexford, Ireland.
Right.
He misses a shot at a golden plover. And this kicks off an argument with the other guests.
Right.
Which bird is faster, the golden plover or the red grouse?
The classic pub debate starter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Turns out neither is actually the fastest, but that wasn't really the point for Sir Hugh. What he realized that night was, like, wow, there isn't a single book anywhere that can settle this kind of argument. Not the everyday debates people have.
No definitive source.
And here's where it gets really interesting. He had this flash of insight, a book designed to settle those pub arguments, answer those little questions everyone argues about. That could be huge.
It's brilliant, really. He didn't just think, let's make a book. He saw a gap, a fundamental human need almost. We want answers, right? We want to know who's the best, what's the most extreme.
Definitely.
And tapping into that, well, that's why it lasted. It wasn't just a gimmick for Guinness. It resonated universally. That laid the foundation for everything that came after.
And it took off like a rocket. Someone at Guinness, Christopher Chataway, he knew these twin brothers, Norris and Ross McWhorter.
The McWhorters, yeah. Legends.
They ran a fact-finding agency in London. So in August 1954, they get the job, compile the Guinness Book of Records. Plan was simple. Print 1,000 copies. Give them away free to pubs in Britain and Ireland. You know, a promotional thing.
Just 1,000. Wow.
Yeah. But the pub goers, they loved them, constantly grabbing them to settle bets and arguments. So that first edition, 198 pages, bound on August 27th, 1955.
Yeah.
Get this. By Christmas that same year, it was the #1 bestseller in the UK.
That's incredible. From a free pub giveaway to a national bestseller in months.
It's astonishing, right? Especially from a pub bet.
And what strikes me looking at the sources is how quickly it went from being just a fun pub book to being the authority, the main international body for checking and listing records.
Yeah, how did that happen so fast?
Well, the McWhorter brothers were apparently meticulous, really rigorous. Plus, the book came out every year, updated. That consistency built trust, They basically set the standard for how you even verify a world record.
That makes sense.
And even though the book itself is still iconic, the physical copy, their website now is massive. It's got the whole archive. So they adapted, moved beyond just print.
Oh, yeah, the McWhorters became famous in their own right. They had this, encyclopedic memory. They were on that British kids TV show, Record Breakers, for decades.
Oh, I remember that. Norris on the spot.
Exactly. Kids would send in questions. They just know the answers. It's sad, though. Ross McWhorter was assassinated in 1975.
Yes. A very dark chapter.
Yeah. Norris carried on as editor, did the TV show segment. He stayed involved as a consultant until 95. The brand itself, though, Guinness World Records, it's changed hands a few times. Went through various big media companies, Diageo, HIT Entertainment. And since 2008, it's owned by the Jim Pattison Group.
Quite the corporate journey, too, then.
Definitely. A long way from Sir Hugh's shooting party. Okay, but now, here's where it gets, well, really interesting and sometimes a bit thorny. GWR doesn't just add records. They also remove them. And the reasons why. Often ethical, and honestly, some of them really surprised me when digging into this.
Yeah, this is where it gets complex. What's fascinating is seeing how they've had to walk this tightrope. Celebrating amazing feats on one hand,
Right.
but on the other, making sure they stick to ethical standards, safety rules, even thinking about the environment. It shows them maturing, I guess, from just listing quirky facts to being weirdly kind of the ethical gatekeeper.
Take animal welfare. They ditched the heaviest pets category, and you can probably guess why.
Oh dear. Let me guess. People were overfeeding their pets dangerously.
Exactly. The last cat winner, Himi, weighed over 21 kilos. They had to wheel him around in a wheelbarrow, and he died from respiratory failure in '86. Just awful.
Wow. Yeah, that's a necessary cut then. It basically incentivized animal cruelty. Did they cut other animal stuff?
Yeah, things like camel wrestling, other controversial animal sports.
Mm-hmm.
It was a clear signal.
Yeah.
We're not endorsing anything that harms animals.
Good. That makes sense.
But it wasn't just animals. They had to grapple with human safety, too. Loads of records got pulled for health reasons, like hunger strikes, fasting records, obviously dangerous,
Right. You can't encourage that.
and untimed gluttony. The 1955 book mentioned a guy, Johann Ketzler, ate an entire ox in 42 days.
An ox. Good grief.
Yeah. So in 1989, they cut 43 gluttony records, called them simply gross, basically, and realized they encouraged really unhealthy stuff.
Okay, that tracks. What else?
Longest kiss gone in 2013, too dangerous, sleep deprivation, other health risks. Extreme endurance stuff, too, like longest time buried alive. A guy named Jeff Smith spent 147 days underground. They denied the record. Too unsafe. Longest time without sleep, also got the axe eventually.
They had to draw a line somewhere on acceptable risk.
Totally. And it stretched into other areas, too, like public policy, believe it or not. Most greeting cards received, remember Craig Shergold? He got 33 million.
Vaguely, yeah.
They stopped that record because postal systems were getting totally overwhelmed.
Huh. Seriously. Okay, that's an unexpected consequence?
And get this, the U.S. Mint asked them to stop largest penny pyramid records back in '84 because it was causing penny shortages.
No way. Penny hoarding for records. That's kind of amazing.
Right. It shows how widespread the impact was. And environmental concerns came in, too. Largest mass balloon release, like that Balloon Fest '86 disaster, gone. Most sky lanterns released, gone, too.
Makes sense with the environmental impact awareness growing.
They even have rules now for big food records. Got to be edible, got to be given out to the public, no massive food waste allowed.
That's a good rule. Responsible.
Some records were just too hard to judge fairly. Like fastest violinist. How do you judge the quality of the music at that speed, even slowed down? Impossible.
True. That's subjective.
Or longest dreadlock. How do you know if bits haven't broken off and been reattached? Hard to verify. And maybe the most chilling one, most prolific serial killer.
They had Pedro Lopez listed. Removed. Because, obviously, you can't make murder a competition.
Yeah, that's just horrifying. Definitely needed to go. It's a surprising amount of ethical thinking for a book that started out settling pub bets.
It really is. Which brings us neatly to the more modern and definitely more controversial side, the business model. How GWR actually makes money now.
Right. This is a big shift.
Traditionally, it was book sales, right? Especially aimed at kids, the Christmas market. But the internet changed things. Book sales maybe dipped.
The classic disruption.
So GWR pivoted, found a very lucrative new income stream. The people who wanted to set the record. So what does this actually mean? Well, it raises some big questions, doesn't it, about the integrity of the whole thing. Basically, you can still apply for a record for free, but it might take ages to get reviewed.
Ages. Like potentially never?
Potentially a very long time, or you can pay. And the fees, well, they range from around, say, $12,000 up to potentially $500,000.
$500,000. For what?
For the premium service. Advisors, official adjudicators flown out to your event, quick processing, even help finding a record you could break, or creating a whole new category for you.
Wow. Okay. So individuals, or more likely corporations, can pay GWR to help them stage and verify a record attempt.
Pretty much. And that's led to criticism, obviously. People saying it's become less about genuine organic achievement and more about, well, paid publicity stunts.
Like native advertising, some call it. Advertising dressed up as a world record.
Exactly. The worry isn't just that money's involved, it's whether the definition of a record is changing. Is it still about pushing limits or just about paying for a PR moment?
Which could feel a bit less special.
Potentially, yeah. It definitely complicates things. You have to look at it critically, think about what it means when the record keeper is also effectively selling record creation services.
And this hasn't gone unnoticed. There's been some pretty sharp criticism. John Oliver, on his show Last Week Tonight back in 2019.
Oh, yeah, I remember that segment.
He really went after them. Accused GWR of taking money from authoritarian governments for, as he put it, pointless vanity projects. He specifically called out the president of Turkmenistan, Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedow, who hold several records.
Right, like most people singing in a circle or largest cycling awareness lesson, things like that.
Oliver even tried to get GWR to adjudicate a record for the largest cake featuring a picture of someone falling off a horse, mocking Burda Muhammad Al, but claimed they refused because of a non-disparagement clause.
GWR denied that was the reason, didn't they? Said Oliver just wanted to mock them and didn't actually request the specific record properly.
Yeah, there was back and forth, but the core criticism stuck. And more recently, like 2024, there have been reports accusing GWR of, quote, laundering the reputation of oppressive regimes.
Laundering reputation, how so?
By awarding records, lots of them, to entities like the UAE police or Egypt's military. The argument is that these records give a sort of positive PR gloss, a veneer of legitimacy, to governments or state bodies that face serious human rights accusations.
So using the world record achievement to distract or sanitize their image.
That's the accusation. GWR officially states that record titles cannot be purchased. But, these situations definitely raise difficult ethical questions about who they work with and what impact these paid-for records have. They've even been dinged for romanticizing diseases like Graves' disease by featuring them as records.
It's definitely a complex ethical minefield they're navigating now.
For sure. But, okay, moving beyond the controversies for a sec, the brand itself has branched out way beyond just the annual book.
Oh yeah, it's a whole media empire now.
They've had tons of TV shows all over the world. You mentioned the UK's Record Breakers. The US had Guinness World Records Primetime. Lots of shows documenting people trying to break records.
And for the gamers listening.
Right. The Gamers Edition. Started in 2008, focusing just on video game high scores and achievements. It took a break for a while, but apparently it's coming back in 2025.
That makes sense. Gaming is huge. Connecting this back, though, this expansion across TV, gaming, museums, it all reinforces GWR's cultural footprint, doesn't it?
Definitely.
Keeps the brand alive, keeps finding new ways to engage people with this whole idea of pushing limits and achieving the extraordinary, whatever form that takes. Shows they can adapt.
And it seems like that multi-platform thing works. They've even had physical museums. The first one was way back in '76 in the Empire State Building.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Closed in '95, but now they have franchise museums in tourist spots. Tokyo, Copenhagen, San Antonio.
Spreading the brand experience.
And to get even more people involved, back in 2005, they started International Guinness World Records Day, November 9th.
Encouraging attempts.
Totally. In 2006 alone, they reckon 100,000 people took part, set something like 2,244 new records on that one day.
That's a lot of record breaking.
And that's not all. They did other books like music reference books.
Yeah.
The Guinness Book of British Hit Singles was a big one. Board games, video games. It's a massive world, built all from that initial curiosity.
It really is.
So what an incredible journey we've looked at today. Started with a pub argument about birds, grew into this global giant, the authority on records. We've seen the huge popularity, but also the surprising ethical twists and turns, and this whole modern business model that, well, certainly raises questions. It's way more complicated and dynamic than just book of lists.
Absolutely. So maybe the takeaway for you listening is this. Next time you hear about a Guinness World Record, pause for a second. Don't just think about the feat itself, how high or fast or long. Think about the whole system behind it. The definitions, the ethics we talked about, the business side of things, what really makes something worthy of being called a world record today, and who gets to decide. It's a question that keeps changing, and honestly, that makes the whole world of records almost as fascinating as the records themselves. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're heading into, well, one of the world's truly essential art museums, the Museo Nacional del Prado in Madrid.
A powerhouse.
Exactly. And our mission today really is to get under the skin of why the Prado is considered so outstanding. It's not just about size, is it? It's more about quality and intensity.
That intensity is the absolute key phrase. If you think about the Louvre or the Met in New York, they're aiming for encyclopedic, covering everything.
Right, the whole sweep of art history.
Yeah. The Prado, it's just fundamentally different.
The sources call it an intense and distinguished collection, not encyclopedic. That really jumped out.
It should. Because, look, it wasn't some grand national project to gather everything under the sun. It grew out of passion, the personal collecting passion of Spanish monarchs over centuries.
So royal taste dictated everything.
Pretty much. That royal history shaped his entire personality. It means the collection is, well, asymmetric, not evenly spread. But where it's strong, it's unparalleled.
Okay, but before we even touch the paintings, there's this amazing backstory about the building itself, the Villanueva building. It wasn't even supposed to be an art museum.
Get this, no, that's the big aha moment. When Carlos III signed off on the plans back in 1786,
Yeah.
it was designed as the Royal Cabinet of Natural History.
Natural history, like animals and rocks.
Exactly. Zoology, botany, geology. It was meant to be the star of this Enlightenment project, the Colina de las Ciencias, the Hill of Sciences.
Yeah.
Right there with the botanical garden and the observatory.
Wow. So just think about that, you listening. All this incredible Velázquez and Goya works, they're hanging where originally they planned to put fossils or plant specimens.
It's a fantastic twist of history. It only became the Royal Museum of Paintings in 1819 under Ferdinand VII. His wife, Isabel de Braganza, was a big supporter of the idea.
Incredible. And for anyone planning a trip, geographically, it's part of Madrid's Golden Triangle of Art, right?
With the Thyssen-Bornemisza and the Reina Sofia museums nearby. But the Prado's unique character, its core, was set long before they came along.
Okay, let's unpack that core then. The royal collection. You said asymmetric, driven by royal taste, alliances, maybe even dislikes.
Absolutely. And that's why, for certain artists, the Prado just has a collection globally. Let's talk about who the sources call the Big Six.
All right, who's first?
Got to start with Velázquez. The Prado has 48 of his paintings, out of maybe 120 known works in total.
48? That's nearly 40% of his entire output.
Exactly. Having that concentration in one place, it's gold dust for art historians, for artists. You can trace his development, his technique, year by year, room by room. You just can't do that anywhere else.
Shifts it from just seeing great paintings to seeing the artist's mind at work over time. Okay, who else is in this Big Six?
Oh, yeah. He's the most represented artist overall.
What?
133 paintings.
Wow.
And it's not just Spanish masters. Felipe IV, for instance, he was a huge collector of Northern European art. That's why the Prado has almost 100 works by Rubens.
100 Rubens? Again, that sounds exceptional.
It is unmatched, really, maybe outside Belgium itself.
And the other core Spanish name?
Well, you've got Ribera, 51 paintings.
Yeah.
Murillo, 55. El Greco, 36 paintings, plus a couple of sculptures. And crucially, Hieronymus Bosch.
Ah, Bosch. The Garden of Earthly Delights?
That's the one. They have 6 of his works, including that absolute icon. It's that deep dive into specific masters that no other museum offers, quite like the Prado.
You can really see the royal fingerprints. Felipe II favoring Titian, Bosch, Flemish art.
Right, he laid the foundation.
Yeah.
And then Felipe IV, he really went for it, adding so much Velázquez and Rubens. But royal taste could also lead to interesting quirks.
Like what?
Like Carlos III buying Rembrandt's Judith at the banquet of Holofernes in 1768. It's a masterpiece, no doubt.
Yeah.
But it's the only Rembrandt the Prado has. Just that one. It shows how personal and, well, sometimes specific these royal choices were.
That specificity is fascinating. Speaking of odd royal decisions, we have to talk about the Spanish gift.
Oh, yes. One of the weirdest episodes in art history, especially wartime art history.
So set the scene. Napoleonic invasion.
Right. Joseph Bonaparte, Napoleon's brother, is king of Spain, but things are going badly. He flees Madrid, and he takes with him over 200 paintings from the royal collection. High-quality stuff, mostly smaller works he could transport easily.
Loot, basically.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But then, the Duke of Wellington defeats the French at the Battle of Vittoria and intercepts this looted treasure.
Okay, so Wellington does the decent thing, wants to return it to King Ferdinand VII.
Exactly. But Ferdinand, he does something utterly baffling. He insists Wellington should just keep the paintings as a personal gift.
Keep them. Keep national treasures.
Yep. Wellington was apparently stunned. He even wrote back, like, are you sure? This includes major works like Velázquez's Water Cellar of Seville.
And Ferdinand said,
He insisted. Maybe it was misplaced gratitude, maybe some grand political gesture, who knows? But the result is a chunk of the Spanish royal collection ended up in London at Apsley House. It's a collection born from a king basically saying, no thanks, you keep my stuff.
That perfectly illustrates what you meant about the collection being tied to these very personal, sometimes bizarre royal decisions.
Absolutely.
So that's the royal core, but the museum grew. The sources point to 2 other big additions. What was the second pillar?
That came in 1872, with the Museo de la Trinidad collection being absorbed.
The Trinidad. Where did that art come from?
It came from the Spanish government confiscating church property back in 1836, the Mendizábal disentailment.
Ah, right. Quick history reminder for you listening. This was when the state seized and sold off assets from monasteries and religious orders.
Exactly, a huge nationalization effort. So the art they got was overwhelmingly religious. Big altarpieces, paintings for churches, mostly Spanish Baroque.
So when the Prado absorbed the Trinidad Museum,
It massively amplified what the Prado already did best, Spanish religious painting. Suddenly, you had even more works by artists like Pedro Berruguet or that amazing altarpiece El Greco did for Doña María de Aragon.
made the collection even more intensely Spanish.
Exponentially so.
Oh.
But it also cranked up a problem the Prado already had. Space.
Yeah, not enough room.
Not even close. The Villanueva building was arguably too small even for the original Royal collection. Adding the entire Trinidad collection, it created this chronic space crunch that, honestly, the museum still deals with today.
Which leads us nicely to the third pillar, ongoing acquisitions and legacies. And the story of Goya's black paintings here is just incredible.
It really is. These weren't typical paintings. Goya painted them directly onto the plaster walls of his house, the Quinta del Sordo, late in his life. Very dark, very personal stuff.
How did they even save them?
A French banker, Baron d'Orlande, bought the house and had the paintings painstakingly transferred from the walls onto canvas. A huge undertaking.
Wow. And then he sold them for a fortune.
Well, that's the twist. He tried to sell them. Took them to Paris for the Exposition Universelle in 1878. Nobody wanted them. The sources say they weren't excessively appreciated. Too weird, too grim for the taste of the time.
So these masterpieces were basically rejected.
Yep. So d'Orlande, probably frustrated, just donated them to the Spanish state, and they ended up in the Prado in 1881.
That's amazing. Rejected by the market. Now they're considered these absolute defining treasures of the Prado.
It shows how taste changes, right? What one era finds disturbing, the next sees as essential genius.
Phenomenal story. So the black paintings were a gift. But the Prado also had to strategically buy things to fill gaps, right? Like early Italian art.
Exactly. The royal collection was rich, but not comprehensive. Early Italian Renaissance, the Quattrocento, was a bit weak. So in 2016, they made a major move,
Which was?
acquiring the Virgin of the Pomegranate by Fra Angelico. They bought it from the Casa de Alba collection for 18 million euros.
18 million. That shows real targeted effort.
Absolutely. It was about strengthening a specific crucial area where they knew they had a relative weakness.
Now, beyond collecting, the Prado has this reputation as a museum for painters. What does that mean?
It means, historically, it's been the place for artists to learn. Think Manet, Renoir, Picasso, Dalí. Even later figures like Hopper or Francis Bacon, they all came here specifically to study Velázquez, to study Goya.
To learn from the masters.
Precisely. Antonio Sarra, a Spanish painter, put it perfectly. This museum is not the most extensive, but it is the most intense. It's where painters go to school.
But if you do go there to learn, maybe to copy a painting, there are some pretty strict rules, aren't there? From the copy office.
Oh, yes. Very specific. You can't just make a perfect replica.
Why not?
Well, two main rules. First, your copy has to be physically different in size from the original, at least 5 centimeters difference on each side.
5 centimeters, that's quite specific. Is that to prevent forgery?
Partly, yes. To make sure no copy could ever be mistaken, even accidentally, for the real thing. It emphasizes the unique objecthood of the original.
Okay, what's the second rule?
Some paintings are just off limits for copying, period.
Which ones? The big icons.
You guessed it. Las Meninas, the nude Masha and the clothed Masha, the Garden of Earthly Delights. You simply cannot make copies of those in the museum.
So it forces artists to engage differently, not just mimicry.
Exactly. Focus on technique, composition, style, not just making a duplicate.
Let's loop back to that space problem, the chronic space saturation. It even led to that phrase, the greatest concentration of masterpieces per square meter.
Right, because so much is packed in or historically had to be stored.
So how do they manage the thousands of works that don't fit in the main building?
That's the Prado Extendido program. It used to be called Prado Disperso, Disperse Prado.
Extended Prado. Sounds better. What does it involve?
It's huge. Basically loaning out works long-term to other institutions all across Spain, and even some abroad. As of a couple of years ago, we're talking about nearly 3,500 works.
3,500.
Yep, deposited in almost 280 different places. Museums, government buildings, embassies.
That's like a whole other Prado scattered across the map. Must be a logistical nightmare.
Oh, it's complex. Preservation, security, transport, documentation,
Mm.
plus the politics of deciding who gets what. But the goal is laudable, making the national collection accessible more widely. Still, it highlights the fundamental limitation of that beautiful Villanueva building.
The collection's value has obviously made it a target, or at least a point of concern, during turbulent times, the 1930s, the Civil War.
A terrifying time for the Prado. A huge number of the greatest masterpieces had to be evacuated, packed up, moved across Spain under dangerous conditions, eventually ending up safe in Geneva, Switzerland.
And they had an exhibition there.
Yes, at the Museum of Art and History, it was a sensation. Drew 400,000 visitors. People like Paul Klee, Giacometti came to see these rescued treasures. It was a global event that really underlined how precious this collection was to the world.
And sometimes threats don't even need to be real to have an impact. There was that story about a fake fire.
Yes. 1891, a journalist, Mariano de Cavia, wrote a completely fictional news report about a devastating fire at the Prado.
Just made it up.
Totally, but it caused such public panic and outrage about the museum's perceived lack of safety measures.
That they actually had to improve security.
Exactly. The hoax forced them to implement urgent upgrades. Sometimes a good scare works better than actual disaster, I suppose.
Okay, before we wrap up, we should just quickly mention it's not only paintings, right?
No, absolutely not. There's a significant sculpture collection, over 900 pieces. Lots of important Roman and Greek works, originals and copies. The San Ildefonso group is a famous example, plus Renaissance works by sculptors like Leone and Pompeo Leone.
And drawings,
Yeah.
prints.
Also important, maybe not the biggest collection in Spain numerically, but the quality. Again, it comes back to Goya. The Prado has the world's largest collection of his drawings, over 520 of them.
More than half his surviving drawings.
That's right. Once again, that incredible depth in a single crucial artist. That's the Prado's signature.
So pulling it all together then, for you listening, the Museo Nacional del Prado stands out not because it tried to be everything, but because it focused intensely, shaped by royal history, resulting in this incredible depth in certain areas. That's its unique power.
And why it keeps breaking visitor records. Over 3.45 million in 2024, people feel that intensity.
Which brings us to a final provocative thought. We talked about the Prado Extendido, works loaned out, but some things are technically owned by the Prado, yet live permanently elsewhere, almost like phantom limbs of the collection.
It's a fascinating aspect of its identity. Take the most famous piece of ancient Iberian sculpture, the Dama de Elche.
Lydia Velche, she's Prado property.
Technically, yes, catalog number E433. But she's been on long-term deposit, basically permanent loan, at the National Archaeological Museum since 1971. She came to Spain in a complex exchange with Vichy France in 1941 that also brought back Murillo's Immaculate Conception.
Wow. And the most famous example of this kind of dispersed ownership, the one everyone knows.
Has to be Picasso's Guernica.
Guernica is owned by the Prado. I thought it was at the Reina Sofia.
It is at the Reina Sofia, the National Museum for Modern Art. It's the centerpiece there. But its legal owner, still the Spanish state, under the administration of the Prado. Picasso wanted it to go to the Prado eventually, but only when democracy returned to Spain. It arrived in 81, went to the Prado's Casón del Buen Retiro annex first, then moved to the Reina Sofia in 92 to anchor their modern collection.
So the Prado's influence, its actual holdings, stretch far beyond its physical walls. Its story isn't just what's inside, but the gravitational pull it has on Spanish art history as a whole.
Exactly. It makes you think about what a museum really is. Is it the building, the collection inside, or something bigger?
Something bigger indeed. Food for thought as you consider this giant of the art world. And that's our deep dive for today. We'll see you next time.